introduced several of the folks who helped coordinate this workshop. We've been working together as a team for a while to plan this out, and I have several of them that will be coming on screen to be part of the panel discussion. But the first thing we're going to do is introduce Sean Nagel. Sean is part of the Southern Area Coordinating Group. Sean is the Regional Fire Director for the National Park Service here in the Southern area. He is going to give us a little bit, recent chair, is that correct? Recent chair of the Southern Area Coordinating Group. If you've been to the SAC website, they have a page there. It tells who's on it, gives their charter, and you'll see that in their charter, they have oversight for all these other working teams: the training working team, decision support team, dispatch working team, interagency business, incident business team, and then the prevention team. So I'm going to let Sean give us a little bit of background about what SAC-G does, how they give the oversight to these different working teams, and a little bit about the working teams, how they get established, and what they're tasked with. So thank you, Sean, for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, y'all, and thanks for this week, for y'all getting together. I just got back from the Great Lakes Fire late last night, so I got my smelly gold team shirt still on, so I'm glad y'all can't smell me. But in any event, this was pretty important that I attend this morning. So yeah, thanks EJ and everybody else for opening the floor for me. So Southern Area Coordinating Group, for y'all that do or do not know, that is the interagency body that oversees the Southern Area Coordination Center, all the incident management teams, and like EJ said on the website there, all those different working teams, the decision support, training, and obviously we're talking about fire prevention team this morning. Each one of the SAC-G reps, which for y'all that don't know, Vince Carver represents Fish and Wildlife Service, Dave Martin represents Forest Service, Bart Kicklighter represents BLM, Reese Kerbo, BIA, and Vince Carver, Vince for Fish and Wildlife Service. I think I missed somebody, but in any event, yeah. So those are and Jim Purvett. Yes, thank you. So Jim Purvett represents the interests from all the 13 states within the Southern area. So again, within our portfolio is to provide guidance and expectations and management of all the teams. And so I am the liaison for y'all's group to SAC-G. Each one of the SAC-G members is a liaison to one of those working teams, and I'm the lucky one to get y'all, so I'm pretty stoked. Again, some of the teams are obviously more engaged than others. Obviously, like decision support is spooled up when we have fire activity, and training working team is pretty much going all throughout the year. For the prevention working team, it's been a bit scattered as far as my involvement, but I understand we're trying to figure out, who's who in the zoo and how we're going to elevate the prevention working team from this point further, which is the purpose of this discussion. So, so anything y'all need in the way of guidance, maybe some issues that y'all are coming across, maybe some policy issues that could maybe be altered a bit, engagement issues, if one agency or the other, could be a little bit more involved or not for whatever particular reason, I can kind of be that person to convey those needs. My job is to make sure y'all have what you need to be successful. So it all just depends on how much you need me, and I'll speak up for y'all that do know me. I'll speak up when necessary, but really I am here to serve y'all. And whatever I can do to kind of elevate this working team. So I'll pause right there. If there's any questions, comments, feedback on what I can do to represent y'all's interests a little better or a little different. So I'll pause right there for any, and I'll just let folks speak up.
So for those who might not realize, so there used to be a pretty active prevention committee in the South. Back in 2010, they helped draft a regional prevention strategy for the Southern area. Of course, now that's 13 years old. So we're kind of hoping to reinvigorate a group of people that can work on similar tasks like that. So one thing, Sean, I'm interested in is on the other working teams, how are they usually formed? Does each entity send one or two participants? Do you limit the number of folks who are participating, or is it a rotating participation? So like 1 year, there's a chair and they serve so many years, and then a vice chair takes over, or how are they structured?
And the other working teams is so really it just all depends. Like the decision support team, we've had kind of a designated person, not necessarily a rotation. If and I haven't had a chance to look in all the charters that's on the SAC page, but it really, whatever y'all need is kind of what we can do. And there's really not a one size fits all with all those working teams, because there are different functions and, like I said, different frequencies. So to answer your question, if we kind of have a little bit more stability by implementing a chair and a vice chair and rotating through, I'm all for that. That'll keep kind of this topic of fire prevention on the radar and significant and apparent on the. So that sounds good to me, but it's kind of different depending on each individual team.
Okay. And I see Jeremy Bennett. Jeremy, you're welcome to come on screen and introduce yourself. You're the BIA prevention rep, looks like, for Eastern area and Southern area.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I don't think Reese is able to make it today, but I would be I'll be the representative for the Southern area if you do stand up another, or get the team stood up again. Been part of the Eastern area team, the working team. Unfortunately, we actually recently they made a decision to actually kind of stand it down for the time being, because with like all these committees, like you're probably aware, Sean, engagement and having people that are on the committees that are willing to actually, kind of drive the committee actions forward. And that's a big important part of it. So it seems like with just by this whole webinar, it seems like there's a lot of energy right now in the Southern area, which is a good thing. And like to definitely see the momentum continue.
Yeah. Yep. No, I love it. I think, this is a good kind of force multiplier right now to keep it going. And EJ mentioned 2010, and in 2016, we did have the prevention team stood up just because of the fall season. So agreed, 6 years later doing it again, we might lose some momentum. So again, if we can collectively agree to meeting more or more frequently than just when the next fire season is, that's fine. That might kind of keep all of our topics a little bit more relevant throughout the year when it's a slow year. But it's just and Jeremy, like you said, this is just triage of all the different collateral duties that we are. But again, I don't want to dismiss the importance of this, but just measuring, where this is, and with all the other hats that we wear, something we'll have to factor in. So.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the states and a lot of the agencies have a lot of good stuff going on, and just kind of bringing everything together seems to. I mean, sometimes we kind of operate in our own little worlds, and
yep,
that's probably the most important thing. I recognize there's a lot of stuff, even though the Eastern area doesn't have a working team, there's still some very good stuff going on, and so
love it.
Yeah, and I don't know if all the working teams under SACG, Southern Area Coordinating Group, have their own charters. I do have a couple of examples of other regions that have a prevention committee, Region 9 being one of them, Eastern region, and they've got some, that the group has sat down and gamed out what are their objectives for that working group. What do they want that team to do? We've talked a little bit amongst our training or the workshop planning committee on some of the things we thought about. I'll share a few of the objectives we threw out there. Of course, these are just initial ideas, they say proposed, what we envision, and certainly other planning committee people for this workshop, please feel free to join our panel and turn your cameras on or join turn your mics on and speak up. We would like to see a group get together on a fairly regular basis to really promote the interagency cooperation, coordination, and training for fire prevention. Now, we don't want to step on the toes of the training working team, but because we've talked already a lot this week about the P classes and the need for more, the need for some updates, some of them are kind of being updated as they get put on, bringing a little bit more a modern approach to some of those P courses. So that could definitely be a task this group could look at is when are we doing these trainings, on what rotation, where across the region do they need to happen, and we can help inform the training working team on our needs for the P classes. And then, develop a regional relook at the 2010 prevention strategy and see what needs updated there, and develop a real regional prevention education strategy. We've talked already several times about WIPSAPs, so bringing that into play, helping try to be a group of SMEs to help folks get their prevention plans up to date or created. And then to build capacity with our teams, our prevention teams. We have a lot of, particularly our PETLs, our prevention team leaders, who are ADs that may one day decide they're really retiring. So I hope not anytime soon, but we do need to recognize that and have some succession planning actions going on right now to increase those capacity in those positions. And then just to develop a network across the South for information sharing. So I know we've had Robin Bible obviously helped spearhead this workshop. From Texas, we have Bruce Woods and Karen Stafford. From Florida, we have Andy Neesmith, Patrick Mahoney, and Todd Candla. So they've all been helping with this. Dave Behrens with Forest Service. We've all worked together to kind of bring this workshop here this week, but we don't want the interest or the motivation to slow down. We want to get a group together and get this started and see what we can what else we can do to improve prevention actions here in the region.
Yep, sounds all good. No, the 4 bullets on the screen look awesome. I like it.
One of the things we were discussing, part of my position in the regional office is prevention program manager, but also tasked with mitigation program. So we were bouncing ideas back. And I want to hear from everybody. Please, feel free to unmute or come on camera or raise your hand, however you're comfortable. I saw on the SACG website that you just have certain working teams listed. We're curious if we see a room for a separate mitigation committee, or if that should be a prevention committee and mitigation be part of that, or have a whole separate committee that works together with the other working teams. Just throwing that out to hear discussions.
And I'll let others provide feedback before I start yapping on that topic. All right, I'll go ahead. Good. I don't want to talk. Good. Awesome.
I see Gary Wood
Gary's
has
up.
his hand up.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Hey, Sean, good to see you,
Hey.
man.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, as far as like a separate committee on mitigation, back at one time, they had a Southern Wildland Urban Interface Committee that had some state, federal, and I don't think there were any NGO folks on it, but it got ramped up pretty quick about the time that South Rap stuff came out. But it was actually more than just wildfire mitigation, and which, when we look truly at WUI, you know, there's a lot of other parts to the puzzle there, because you definitely can bring in your urban and community forestry folks, your forest health folks, etc. And that was one of the things that Southern Group kind of dropped that committee out of their folks. But you know, with the work we do with cohesive strategy, with so many different of those committees within those state organizations, you know, that kind of was some of the stuff I absorbed doing. But I could see a huge benefit in a true, like, formed committee on mitigation, or maybe a subcommittee under prevention, or a whole separate. You know, you hate to build more when you already got a plate full of priorities, but, you know, how are we going to get ahead of the curve? You know, we got to make the investment. But if it's something that we could help with from our strategy committee to help facilitate with pulling together some of those parts to the puzzle, then I would be interested in taking that to our leadership. And I feel like we would certainly be able to get approval to try to help in facilitating putting some of that together.
Oh,
If y'all
yeah.
do so, you know.
Yeah, appreciate that insight, Gary. I think, you know, EJ, to circle back to your question, maybe we just kind of embed the mitigation group under the fire prevention just for now. And then if it grows legs and it's worthy of a separate team title, then yeah, we could do that for sure. But maybe just kind of crawl before we walk on that. But if it's a subgroup, if you will, under prevention, initially, and then yeah, if it grows legs, it could be its own entity for sure down the road. Again, that's just my thought, you know, subject to discussion. So.
Any other thoughts, comments on this? We might even have some folks who were on the original 2010 prevention working team. So Gwen asked the question, who would this be under? So the Southern Area Coordinating Group is chartered to provide oversight to several working teams, if you look on the website. So one of which is the prevention working team. So we would be working under with the oversight of SACG, and have hopefully representatives from every you know, kind of like the work coordinating group has. So Jeremy is the BIA rep, and maybe we'll have folks. I would hope from more than just one state. I would hope we would get a group, you know, of interested from that would span the region, and so have some state reps on the team that cover. And maybe not fully 13, but maybe one from each state would be fine. And one from each state, one from each federal entity. And that's a pretty good sized group. And I think that would be a nice working team. Yeah, Gary, do you remember, was that the folks that prepared the WUI strategy? That was about 2010 also, I think. Were they some of the same people that did the prevention strategy? Or do you remember?
I think it was all separate, to be honest with you, EJ. And I think it was actually prior to 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that I know when Bill Sweet did the first one, it was sort of underneath that committee. But it was, it was region wide, it was multi-agency, it was multi-state. And then when we redid it in 2008, was it? We had a big meeting and wrote both a WUI strategy and a prevention strategy, but that was intended to be we even had the Nature Conservancy there and AmeriCorps and different people that could also help deliver messages, since we don't have a lot of prevention folks in the region. And when I say region, I mean all inclusive, even with state folks and that sort of thing. So
One of the other things, we've gotten, and I think Robin will share at the end of the workshop, an opportunity to evaluate and send feedback, with this workshop. But one of the things that we have discussed as the planning committee was, do we do this? How often do we do the learning exchange kind of thing? What can that look like in the future? And that's, in my mind, something this chartered group would do, is to figure out what frequency to have, regional gatherings, workshop exchanges. Is it every other year? Is it shorter but more frequent? So any feedback on that, any guidance for this group that you all have in your minds that you think, oh, this team could really help with some new idea that you have? Feel free to, this is a panel discussion.
Crickets. This is Bruce Woods with the Texas A&M Forest Service. So on the state perspective and being part of the original committee and the WUI committee, the coordination, I'm all in favor of what we're talking about, and a priority should be our training and the coordination of the support of the learning exchange is very important. And, dusting off and establishing a new strategy now that we have the cohesive strategy, all the work that Gary's doing, and that it's extremely important. And one of the things that I think that also is important would be having a forum of state people that could then know each other and then could coordinate multi-state grants and opportunities, leveraging our funding to run the engine. We can't, funding you need funding for everything. And I think that we do have funding opportunities through our state, so we just need to be strategic on it to implement that. And then in closing, the other thing is the WIPS is just as a paradigm shift in prevention. And I think that, the South, we've always had a tradition going back to Bill Sweet of training and exchange of ideas and borrowing from other states and not and being really a unified front in prevention. And I think we have an opportunity to really lead the nation in telling our story and documenting the success of prevention through WIPS, and that should be a priority of our training throughout the South.
Yeah, I don't know, a lot of folks, only a handful of folks in the South have had the WIPS training, and Texas has been real successful in utilizing it. I'm not sure a lot of other places have really dived in to figure out how it can work for them. But you know, that could be something this committee could help with. And then the developers of that are pretty open to ideas. So, you know, believe it or not, some things that come out are very Western centric in the fire world. So if there are tweaks that we need to see as a region, you know, this could be an avenue to communicating that.
I can speak on the WhoopSap stuff because I was part of the development team and the cadre that rolled it out. But you know, the BIA has been a driver of that from the beginning, and then because it's met a need for us, you know, and so all the enhancements and the things that are being developed now are being driven by the people that are engaged and cooperate or wanting to use the tool. So like right now, if you get involved and you start using it and you're like, especially if you're working within the training version and you see something that's not right, or you'd like to see something different, you can create a lot of, I mean, that this is the time to create the model or the program to be what we want it to be. So it's pretty cool. And then I believe a lot of that, the Prestman research ties to that, you know, that area too, you know, the Southeast. And so, yeah, you guys have been very, very much leaders in prevention, and this is a way to kind of continue to create to show that the money that we put into it is actually effective and good ways to tell our story. So encourage you to get involved.
I know we have the Florida Forest Service folks headed to Texas to teach P310 here soon. I would you know, I know that working with Sean Flanagan and some of the folks on the training working team, they have really tried to set forth a 5-year plan for training, like the a fuels 5-year plan, a logistics 5-year plan, a planning, finance. They just did a finance academy at the Tennessee Kentucky Academy this past year. So they've got these long-term plans on training delivery and how to meet their goals for getting people the training they need. So I'm really hoping that this chartered team could help the training working team develop that kind of a plan for training needs and training delivery across the South. And I'll share Bruce's interested in hearing from other attendees, state attendees, your thoughts and interest on serving on a working team like this.
One of the things that's important is, oh, good, we have somebody here. I'm gonna get off so they can. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, prompt accepted, Bruce. This is Wesley Skeeto in North Carolina. I think we've got a lot of folks in our state agency that would be well suited to kind of move up this training progression, participate, you know, kind of build that capacity. So that's something I'm going to take forward to the fire chief and kind of up the ladder, see if we can do a little pushing on that. Been with the agency about 5 years, so not overly familiar with kind of our history. There are others that I can tie in and kind of get that download, but I've been appreciative to be a part of this and hear a lot of this content, a lot of it for the first time. I did have a follow-up question about WIPSAPs while I had the floor. You know, what is the intended target audience? I know the federal agencies, I know state agencies, with all the grant recipients, that are coming down with CWDG, is there a trickle down effect as far as access to that system, or is it mainly just the agency type folks?
I'll see if Jeremy, since you were part of that, can you help answer that?
I mean, it's designed to be more of a strategic level planning tool, and by like fire management or prevention planning unit size. So I mean, we use it for our tribal programs to, tribal level, and that's kind of what it's designed for. At least what we're using it for is for developing our planning and our prevention actions. But
Okay. Appreciate the insight.
Yeah, so, and then Bruce asked the question and Wesley came on. So should we ask, should the invitation be sent out, like each state, 8 forestry agencies should send a rep to this team, and then each federal entity also have a rep, or just open it to folks who are interested and motivated?
is that a question for anyone particular?
Question
Or-
for anyone.
I mean, I can speak about the Eastern Area Coordination, the Eastern Areas group. We struggle to get people to participate. So, getting people to get into the leadership roles and committed to continuing to keep stuff going is important. So if you got enough of that, then that would be good. But I mean, there's a lot of other committees and things going on, and some of the states might already have a really strong organization going. So I don't know exactly. I mean, I don't know if we need there.
So, Andy, I saw you came on. Do you want to share, like, from a Florida perspective? What are your thoughts?
Well, EJ, I don't see why we couldn't have at least a state representative from each state, and then, a representative from each of the federal agencies. So it's kind of keeping, everybody on the same page. And then, because I mean, you could even have like a smaller in-state working group that can input, and then one representative on the working group.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gwen brought up a good point. People usually want to know what the time commitment is before they throw their name in, and that's a good question. When we start putting this group together, how frequently will they meet? Sean may have more insight. I know the training working team, like he said, they're pretty active. They're probably the most consistently active group. I think they meet like once, or they have a phone call once a month, I think, and they meet together once a year.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. They're on a monthly meeting process and meeting face to face once a year. Again, and again, that's just because their workload demands that much coordination for sure. So.
I could see a similar thing getting this kicked off, a monthly meeting with some homework in between meetings, and then a yearly to get together. Especially at the beginning, I can envision that. Yeah, and I see that the compacts got brought up in the chat. So yeah, that's maybe you know, a good resource to tap into. What are the compacts doing? Do they have any kind of prevention mission that they're addressing?
Well, yeah, EJ, definitely. I had mentioned there that several years ago, I worked with the Mid-Atlantic Compact and actually doing a P310 training. So we can certainly get with Jim Prevet and continue the discussion, and I'm sure he would be very interested in sponsoring that. Yeah, definitely. Gary just came on and said, yeah, the makeup of our Southeastern Compact is a little bit different than the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. So there might be some adjustments that would have to be made there.
Yeah, and you know, we have a pretty robust training delivery system here in the South between all the different academies as well. So maybe, you know, one of the meetings we could have one of the reps from the training working team to come and just paint that picture. Where are all the training delivery options that have support? I mean, obviously you can do single trainings here and there, and that's effective too. But if you combine efforts and embed things in those already structured academies where you get a little bit bigger bang for your buck, you get the extra, you know, the extra help in outreach, the extra help in registration and whatnot. So that could be part of the very beginning, is kind of getting a picture of what the training working team has been setting up and then going from there. I see, yeah, a once a month meeting would be nice, and then have a set date. So yeah, we could definitely, if you have suggestions, I saw you said second Wednesday of every month as an example. I guess the folks who are interested, if you have ideas of, we could do a doodle poll and see which date works the best for everyone.
Gary, you had your hand up.
Yeah, quick question as far as like with training, are the fire prevention training opportunities posted on the SOFIT site, the Southern Area Wildland Interagency Training site that was developed? I mean, like the upcoming course, I think Bruce and them are hosting in Texas.
That's a good question. Karen or Bruce, do you know that SOFIT's fairly a new website, so I don't know how many people are using that. Do Bruce or Karen, you want to talk about the upcoming training?
Last time I looked at that site, it just primarily listed like the training academies.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And again, we offered the P310 as part of our Tennessee, Kentucky Wildfire Academy. So there probably needs to be some way to let people know, yes, we are offering it, and it's going to be part of the course offerings at our academy, and go there. So there would need to be some email blast or mechanism to let interested prevention people know. We usually try to do the P310 every 2 years at our academy here in Tennessee.
I'll find the SOFIT.
Well, EJ, this is Pete Irvin, you may be able to speak to this a lot better than I can, but it seems like, Lindsay is very willing to post anything on SOFIT that has any interest to the overall wildland fire community, prevention and mitigation included. So I think it's probably a good opportunity, but maybe not a well-known one at this point. I've had some success getting her to post some outer region resource advisor related stuff. So, seems like a good tool that maybe not everybody knows about yet.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think probably that some small groups use that as a resource, but it hasn't spread far enough yet. This is a good opportunity to share. Gary put the link in the chat. What other ideas from the participants here that we should take with us for this group? So we had I'll post here shortly the link to the interest form if you want to be part of the prevention team in some capacity, working on prevention team member or prevention team leader, how you want to participate with that. Please reach out to either Robin or I if you are interested in being on this committee, and our workshop planning committee will get together this afternoon and decide how we want to extend that invitation out and invite folks to be part of this new prevention working team and see who we can draw in. But if you are specifically interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know. We'll try to bring you into that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? This is a very important topic and a great opportunity to provide the input. I think that this is one of the primary reasons we wanted to host this webinar, to share ideas and get information in moving prevention forward in the southern region. Yeah, Wesley does say Academy offerings do put prevention courses competing with other courses for our priority. So unless the prevention comes from the boots on the ground membership, that's very important.
Okay. Well, feel free to reach out if you have more thoughts or ideas afterwards. And thanks. Thanks to everybody for helping participate. Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Jeremy, for hopping on to share information.
Thanks,
Thanks, y'all.
everybody.
I'll be around
Get some,
if I can do anything. Thank you.
Rest up, Sean. Yeah, thanks for getting on here this morning, everybody. And again, what we'll do is this site will be open, and I'll be monitoring it. If you do have ideas, it's a great way to communicate. Just put information in the chat, and we can capture those ideas. And as we move into the evaluation, and part of the idea that we have for the evaluation is just not to, well, did you like this course, or what did you think about this? It's to really provide some input going forward for the purpose of this webinar exchange. So we'll be providing that for you. Okay, well, we're going to change gears now, get back into the general part of our program. And I want to go ahead and introduce Megan Fitzgerald McGowan, who is actually the NFPA Firewise USA program manager and represents the organization in many different wildfire groups. She connects with federal, state, and local partners to engage residents and communities in proactive wildfire risk reduction activity through the framework of the Firewise USA Recognition Program. She's been working in and around wildfires since 2003. She was a red-carded firefighter and dispatcher. Before she joined NFPA in 2017, she worked for the Washington Department of Natural Resources, serving as their Firewise liaison for a year and a half. Besides moving Washington's Firewise program forward, she was also active in the state's Fire Coordination Center. Megan holds a master's degree in natural resources from the University of Idaho and a certificate in fire ecology, management, and technology. Her transitions to NFPA and supporting Wildfire USA has allowed Megan to pursue her goal of using a collaborative approach to help reduce risk and loss from wildfire at the national level. And Megan is back in Washington. She's back in Spokane Valley. So she's back to her roots, I guess, back home, essentially, working there. So Megan, great to have you with us this morning.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Let's see if I can get this up and running. How's the morning been so far?
It's been good. Good. We just had a really good discussion. We had a very active couple of days here with information.
Excellent. Sorry, this is just not quite doing what I want it to do. All right. Share this.
Okay, there it is.
All right. Good to go?
Yes, looks good.
Oh, okay. Well, good morning and hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. As Robin said, my name is Megan. I work for NFPA and I'm the Firewise USA program manager. So he already said all the things on the slide. Now I've been going in and out the last couple days, listening to some of the different presentations as my work schedule allowed. And it's just been great to hear the conversations, the different programs and resources and tools that folks are using. Representing the Firewise program, I always love to hear when people say our name and they're talking about us in the right way. And it's just exciting to know that the interest is out there and we are a program, a tool available to everyone. But I think it's a pretty important one in the sense that it's engaging residents and trying to be a part of our wildfire solution, knowing that fires are going to happen, but they have a critical role to play in preventing that destruction within neighborhoods and communities. So I will be talking about that as we go through this presentation. I'll have just a brief kind of overview of the Firewise USA program in case we have some new folks. And then I know for some of those of you who've been supporting for a long time, things change, or maybe you kind of lose track for a little bit and come back in. So a little refresher, it won't take too long, but I think it's always good to go over the process, how we do things, and just so we can keep moving forward in that positive way. And, definitely want questions throughout or at the end. We always take feedback. And so that's what I'm hoping we'll get a little bit of going here later on, is some discussion around that. But first of all, where I work. So I do work for the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. NFPA is much bigger than wildfire. It's a very small part of what we do. We work in the world of codes and standards and fire and life safety. A lot of our work is like fire protection engineers, things like that, putting out code. And then through our outreach and advocacy, we work through really the fire departments and their fire and life safety staff that go and do things with Sparky, smoke alarms, all those different things. But we do have a wildfire division, and we have been active in the wildfire space since the mid-1980s. Our work really is in the built environment. That is where we've always participated with, at one time, like a kind of a WUI committee, and then eventually transitioning to having the Firewise USA program. Our mission within our division is to provide resources to residents and key influencers such as yourselves to help ensure that everyone living at risk from wildfire has the information, knowledge, and tools to reduce that risk. So our goal is to help make everyone have that good understanding of what are the threats in front of them and what are the actions that they can take to reduce that. And we do this through a variety of ways. So when we look at wildfire safety work, it really is a strategic or a systems approach. The things on the screen, you can't have success in one really without the other. So in policy, we have our Outthink Wildfire approach that we rolled out a couple of years ago. We've been making great progress there. We hosted a summit last year that really looked at kind of home retrofits and that home building part of wildfire. We have been monitoring different things happening, mainly in the West at this time, around code, adoption, incorporation, reference. It depends on where you're at, how it's referred to. One of our colleagues who works in a different division at NFPA has been a part of the wildland kind of fire commission talks in Colorado, trying to build a WUI code board. So they have a bill that's moving forward to be signed by the governor that puts a board in place to then figure out a code for Colorado. So they're not quite at bringing on a building code yet with wildfire in mind, but they're taking steps to get closer. And it's been a tough road to go, because that is a home rule state where control is really held at the local level. We've been a part of discussions in California, Oregon, other states, and I just know that as we see a lot of this activity happen in the West, some of it is going to start making its way east, and especially when we get to insurance, and I'll talk about that later with Firewise. So we also have codes and standards. All of the different wildfire codes we used to have been consolidated into one 1140. So if with part of your job duties you do touch that, that's where it's all at now. And that is actually open for public comment if any of you are interested in being part of the codes and standards kind of development process. And if you are, you can always email me and I can send you to where you need to go. We also have training and certification that is specific to looking at the structures, the homes out there in the wildland urban interface and assessing them for hazards and risk. So the training is our assessing structure ignition potential from wildfire ASIP, long name, used to be the HIZ class. And then we have our wildfire mitigation specialist certification, still fairly new. It's been out for a couple of years. We're starting to get more people going through it. And it's just that opportunity in the space to have that standardization, kind of that level of achievement. And it's open to more than just people who work maybe for a fire organization. We have folks who've gone through it who are more kind of consultants doing things on the side, some people in the insurance industry, contractors. But the whole idea is the more of the workforce out there speaking from the same knowledge base and the same language, the better off it is for everyone, especially those residents that we are trying to reach with our message around what they can do around their home and property to increase that safety. We do public education. And then our big thing that we're known for are community engagement programs, and that's Firewise and then Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. So Firewise USA, the thing I am here to talk about, Firewise from our perspective is a framework to help residents get organized, find direction, and take action to increase the ignition resistance of their homes and communities. It is a program that is based in science, looking at the concept of the home ignition zone that was originally coined by Dr. Jack Cohen. And it's this idea, as you all know, that the home materials and immediate surroundings dictate its ignitability. So when I'm out talking with folks or when we're putting out information, this is where we are focusing. We know in a community's wildfire adaptation journey, there's a lot more to be considered, but Firewise is very specific at looking at homes and those immediate yards, properties, landscapes within that community boundary. And the whole idea is for the program itself that neighbors are going to influence each other, right? We're going to have these overlapping home ignition zones, and people need to work with each other and look out for each other and then help create that overall ignition resistant community. And that's our goal. So the program started in 2002. It's been around quite a while. We had 12 original pilot sites and 9 of those are still active. So that's really exciting. It means that those people see value in doing the work, connecting with each other, connecting with their state and local partners, and then connecting with us. And they hit 20 years a year ago, and we are trying to figure out what we can do to recognize them, to help share their stories, to be inspirations for others who are trying to figure out, how do I get started on this journey? How do I talk with my neighbors and get them to start taking action around their home and property? And that can be tough because a lot of the people who are out there doing this work for us on the ground, they live in that community, and it's hard when you maybe rock the boat a little bit, ask people to do things they might not want to do. It can create friction, but we know, looking at this picture, we know that people need to do more. We know that communities need to take stronger action. And it goes beyond that. You know, we have to look at those building codes, land use planning, all those different things. But how do we help prevent the destruction of homes like this community right here? Let's see. Whoops. Oh man, skipping over things. So, you know, some details about the program, or kind of the why wildfires are part of the ecosystem and will continue. So we're not here to say put out all the fires. Definitely support the message that's being shared about those human caused fires. And when you engage with a community through Firewise, there are other things, that's also that opportunity to talk about all the different wildfire issues that we're trying to engage in. And different organizations we work with have found that our Firewise sites are more engaged and activated. So it's that opportunity to have them really be the leaders in your area, looking at fire prevention, evacuation, mitigation, all these different things. Sorry, circling back to my bullet points, we know that most homes are located on private property and that homeowners have the right to make their choices about their property. So this is where I think Firewise is unique. It is a voluntary program, and we are a nonprofit, NFPA, so we're not a governmental organization coming in and telling people what to do. I know we work with state partners and federal partners such as yourselves and fire departments who have maybe more authority, but from the program and what we put out in terms of the criteria, we don't make anybody do anything on their property. It's get an assessment done, prioritize the recommendations, and then encourage folks to take those science-based actions. And we found that a lot of people are into that. So currently we have 2,176 sites across the country, including some participation in Alaska and Hawaii. Obviously, these maps are not to scale, and we're currently active in 39 states. It used to be a couple more, but for reasons here and there, some have dropped off. I often get questions like, why aren't some of those states there in the middle participating? And it really just depends on their hazard, their organizations, their priorities, and their mission, what they're trying to look at. But the program is open to any and all who live with that wildfire hazard, who want to work through the criteria and engage. And we are here to help you bring them through that process. And if there's a state where there's not a lot of opportunity for capacity to support that, we can talk about how things can work. For the southern region, we have really good participation. So when we look at 2022 for the reporting that was done, because there is annual reporting, there were 489 sites that were in good standing. So that's pretty awesome. And those 489 sites invested between money spent and volunteer hours worked $26.8 million. So they were busy, they were doing things, and that's what we want to see happen. I went and broke down the hours that they self-reported, again, voluntary. So this information it's good, but it is self-reported. So it's not as scientific as maybe some would like, but I think it's a really good place to start to show, like, look, folks are investing in their safety and we need to invest and support in them. But those hours worked, 145,000 around the home. And that's what we and our friends at IBHS and others who are looking at that built environment problem really want to see. We want to see those home improvements. We want to see, my boss, Michelle Steinberg, doesn't like the word hardening, but that's what we use in the space right now. We want to see those home hardening actions take place. Then we had 174,000, so more hours in that home ignition zone, in the portal, which I'll show you in a couple minutes. It's referred to as like the landscaping area, and really it's that 0 to 100 feet from the home. And then we had a lot of hours worked in those common areas too within a community. So great work by the communities in your region, and we hope to see a lot more in 2023. We've already had some new communities come on board in the southern region in 2023, and that's exciting. It's not always about quantity, but we do like to see the numbers, but really it's about that quality. And then I thought, just for fun, I know it's a little small, this top 10 by states participating, that's current as of just yesterday when I pulled this graph out of the portal, and we've got Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, and Virginia all in the top 10. When we look at this, California is kind of the outlier. Their fires, their insurance situation is really driving a lot of participation. Up until 5 years ago, they would have been 4 or 5 down on the list. So they've really taken off, but I really like to look at kind of from Oregon down, because I think that's where we see more of that kind of traditional engagement. And so you guys are really doing a great job, and we appreciate your support and participation. Quick overlook of how we operate. So I am with NFPA at the national level. We set the criteria for Firewise. So, what are the steps that people have to take? We run the portal. We work with the Forest Service through a cooperative grant to support all of this. But then we're also talking with all of our state liaisons. So every state has that opportunity to have a liaison. It's typically someone with the organization that has the state forester, so your state forestry department or natural resources. But we do have some states where they have a strong partnership with another organization, and they've decided that they should be the state liaison. It all works. It's just we want to have someone to talk to who can help facilitate and represent their state, their needs, what their communities are saying. And then we work down through local practitioners. So it could be more state or federal like offices at the local level, fire departments, we have fire safe councils, other subject matter experts who work for other types of organizations. And then it's that kind of grassroots individual communities. And while this is looking very top down, it can also flow up. We have communities that get started on their own. They never talk to anybody. They just find it online. They say, we want to do this. They grab the information and they run with it. And then sometimes our local partners are like, wait, slow down, let us come speak with you. But that's really the intent is we want the people on the ground in those communities to own it. It's their homes, it's their neighbors. So they need to play a key role in walking through the assessment, driving program participation. If you're out there trying to engage and it's like pulling teeth, move on, keep the door open. Always keep that line of communication open with the community you might be targeting. But if they're not ready yet, that's okay. Move on to someone who does want to engage and talk with you. And then they can always come back maybe when they're ready. Real quick, we'll run through the steps to recognition just as this refresher in case folks have forgotten along the way. So all communities in the program have to have a board or a committee. This committee should include residents, partners, different organizations, and then they will collaborate with their local wildfire experts to complete a community wildfire risk assessment. This assessment can look different in different states. So we do have a template that we developed based on some of the questions in South Rep because we thought they were really great. The home assessment questions, like looking at really the structure down and then working its way out. So for the template we've developed, it's really focused on the community within its boundary, the condition of the homes, and their properties. But we have some states that choose to use a full CWPP for their community risk assessment. That's fine. We take that too because it's detailed as long as there's a map and it actually talks about the homes and what they look like. That's what we want to see because that's what we want folks to focus on. We do get people coming in and through their risk assessment and might have stuff about their homes, but they really key in on, well, that adjacent landowner has forest land and they're not doing anything. And from our perspective, we understand, but that's out of your control. Where you can control and focus is your homes and properties. So let's circle back there. Once they have that assessment done, they need to develop a 3-year action plan. So here's just, kind of what it could look like. So year 1, year 2, year 3 lined out. And the idea is that activities each year build on the success from the year before, right? We're not trying to be a static program. Communities need to keep moving forward with their recommendations that have been given in their assessment, and they need to keep working towards different goals. And this plan, and I should have said it on the previous slide, that assessment have update cycles. So the assessment is every 5 years. The action plan is every 3 because it should be a checklist that they're kind of going through. They should be looking at it and refreshing it. We know there are some communities that are very comfortable in having their community chipper day and their barbecue, and that's what they do every year. And that's a good starting spot. But when we look at devastation and loss that's occurred in fires in the West, we've seen some loss in Texas, there were the fires in Tennessee. Some of those communities have come on board with Firewise since, but when we look at all these things, people have said, we knew we should have been doing X, but we didn't get to it yet, or Y, or we should have just been doing more. And so that's really where we've been trying to focus our communication, and our guidance is how do we help these communities really own their problem and get them to do the right things in the right place at the right time. And it's hard because it costs money, or you have to take out those things that you really value and love. And how do we create behavior change and perception around what beauty is and landscaping? And I don't have all those answers, but it starts with conversations, and it starts with people talking to each other and working towards that common goal. So once they've gone through next steps, they have to host a minimum of one wildfire risk reduction educational outreach event. That's a lot of words. They have to host a meeting or some sort of outreach event where they're talking about wildfire and wildfire safety. It could be evacuation. It could be Firewise related. It could be prevention. Just they need to be engaging with their residents, with their neighbors, and then they need to meet that minimum wildfire risk reduction investment. I have a slide for that. Here's one on the educational events. I already kind of touched on that, so we'll skip forward. Activities that count towards the investment. Obviously, all those volunteer hours, people doing the work on their property, that all counts and can be reported to that resident leader. And I know the reporting part can be tough for Firewise, and we're always trying to figure out how can we do better, and we haven't come up with a solution yet. Ideally, everyone could fill out something and it would push to their community's application in the portal, and then boom, it would be done. But there's privacy concerns and there's just some technology limitations, so we're figuring that out. But if you have a resident leader who says they're overwhelmed collecting all the hours, I get it. And at the end of the day, we respect them and say, use your best judgment, use your best estimations. It's okay if it's not perfect or exact. If you know that your neighbors are doing work, you can look at things and kind of make some well-educated guesses. And we understand and we're okay with that. It can also be money spent on different things like renting equipment, contractor costs, all those different things. For 2023, the hourly rate has gone up. So we use the national volunteer rate that's posted. I forget the website. I can drop it in the link in the chat later if someone needs it. But we go with what's posted at the beginning of the calendar year because that's how we operate our system. So sometimes they make a change in April. We have decided to not go with that. We lock it in January, and it's the same rate throughout the year. That way things aren't changing on community members. So for this year, it's $29.95. Volunteers are worth a lot. That's awesome. But remember, it's an equivalent. They don't have to spend all that money within their community. If they have 100 homes, they need to work 100 hours. Really, they need to work the equivalent of 1 hour per home, like 1 hour of work per home per year. And that's a minimum. So we know that people are doing more and they're welcome to report more, but that's just, and the math for that 100 homes, I'm sorry, I missed up on updating that. That's not correct. But you get the idea. So after they've done all these things, they can go to the portal, or they can go there at the beginning just to get things started and kind of report as they go. So they go to the portal, portal.firewise.org. They create their user account. If they've ever ordered anything from NFPA, like brochures or posters, it's the same login information. So they'll have their email and password. They get in, they can create their community profile. So that'll have all the details about their site, where it's at, how many homes, give us an address for their lead contact so we can send them the signs and all of those things. And then they can access that application to fill it out and submit it. Once it's submitted, it goes to that state liaison in the portal. They look it all over. And if everything's good, they send it on to me and I do the final review and onboarding, and then we work on getting materials sent out. One more thing that's a change. In the past, we sent signs and we had the opportunity for a plaque. And moving forward, we're just doing the signs. The plaques are very nice to look at, but the cost keeps going up. And I don't know if it's worth that money, the value, right? It's that value proposition. We know that the signs are valuable. We get that feedback. So we want to be able to keep sending those out, and we want to keep being able to provide the printed materials that we have. So we had to make some decisions somewhere. So if you were around when we sent out plaques, we no longer do that, but the signs are there and we're always happy to get those out to communities. And then for anyone who's been in the program, so some of that was how does a new site join? And then for those who are already here, we do have that annual renewal process. So that's going to be, they have to fill out the application by the Friday before Thanksgiving, submit it. Again, it's in the portal, and they will have that chance to make any community updates. If you work with a community and let's say they want to change their name, or they've decided to annex in a whole new road with 50 more homes, or, oh, no, we don't want to work together anymore, we want to split in half. All of those things can be done. It's just sending me or my colleague Erin Anderson an email, and we can work with you to help that community through that process. We see all kinds of different things. At the end of the day, we're working with people, and sometimes relationships either get stronger or they fall apart. So, there is that opportunity for things to happen. I want to pause to see if there's any questions about the recognition process. Again, not much has changed, but it's always good to refresh, and then I'll zip through where I think there's a lot more interest, which is insurance. So real quick, any questions? And I can't see the chat box right now, so if there is anything there, I'd appreciate just someone putting it out there for me over the air.
Yeah, Megan, we
Nothing
don't
in the
have
chat
anything.
box.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat box for right now. I did go ahead and put the link to the Firewise USA NFPA.org site up for people to be able to access that. So
All right.
that information is there.
Perfect.
But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the annual renewal process. That's always a big push. It seems to always catch communities off guard a little bit, even though we talk about it, we're promoting it. So yeah, just my recommendation would be, to start early. If I know we have several of the Firewise liaisons from the Southern region on this webinar. So yeah, it sure helps to start early and begin working with those folks and reminding them.
Yes, and thank you for that. Just so all of you do know, we have a communication kind of strategy around it, and we try our best in partnership with our state liaisons to get the details out there. But we usually do a print mailer that goes out in September. We start doing email notifications end of August, early September. And it's the last few years we've kept it that same kind of Friday. And yet it's a surprise sometimes. I'll get folks in January or February or March like, oh, hey, I missed the renewal. When did that happen? Oh, the same time it has the last few years. But, we work through it. And as long as people are giving us a heads up that they're going to be late, we can accommodate that. It's always those surprises in March where I'm like, I'm sorry, you got to move on. The year has closed. But yeah, so those early reminders, it's open now. So people can be in the portal if they're hosting events already, or they had a meeting, or they know some folks have done some work, they can start to put in those entries and save it. So then they can not have to do it all at once down the road.
Also,
All right.
Megan, we did see several people during the pandemic. People weren't able to get together to do community events, and they kind of hit the pause button. So again, if people don't renew, they don't get kicked out of the program. They just go inactive, essentially.
Yeah, and they can come back. If you do work with any communities and maybe they fell off for a little bit for a variety of reasons, but they're ready to go, they want to join back in. If they have someone new, we can get them set up as the resident leader. Their profile is still there. We don't delete them. They go to inactive, and then after 2 years they go to archive, but we can pull them out of archived. And then it's just a matter of looking at the paperwork, when they last were doing things, and we can get them right back in the program. So we're always here. We're always ready to welcome people back. So that is an option. All right, something I wanted to touch on because it comes up in all the conversations I have about Firewise. I call it the elephant in the room, but it's a really large one, and that's insurance. We are getting a lot of questions, and we are seeing a lot of concern around insurance attainability and affordability. And the majority of this is in the West for now. But as we look at these fires, changing weather patterns, climate, we see that shift in where fires burn, how long they burn for, those communities at risk, knowing that there are a lot of WUI communities in the southern region. Insurance concerns might make their way towards you if they haven't already. So we don't work for the insurance industry. Firewise was not developed as an insurance program, but they are paying attention, and they have been for a while. So when we look at Firewise USA, we have a standing relationship with USAA, where they originally started with California. They approached us. They wanted to see about offering their members who live in Firewise sites an incentive or a discount for being a part of a community. And we provided them some data. They did their analysis, came back and said, yep, it's a benefit to our members. And not just for wildfire. They found that their members living in Firewise sites had lower risk for other hazards as well. They were more engaged. So they did a rate filing in California. They were able to give an incentive, and that is spread to 9 other states. Again, in the West for now, that's where not all, but a lot of their membership is. But we know that they're starting to look at other areas. California recently passed a law requiring the whole insurance industry, all providers, to look at different considerations when developing their rate filings, and Firewise USA is a listed one. So we're in law in California to be considered for providing an incentive or insurance. And that's what's driving a lot of that participation. People are getting dropped, and or their rates are increasing just by alarming amounts. And so it's one way for them to try to be engaged and start doing that work. But the process isn't immediate. So that's something that we're working through. Michelle has had conversations in Oregon and Nevada and Texas about Firewise and insurance and what that looks like. A new bill was announced this week in Oregon, kind of modeled after what they did in California, looking at the insurance industry and kind of saying, hey, you need to be offering insurance and providing incentives and taking these factors into consideration. So I want to bring that up here. I'd asked Robin once, and I know on our state liaison calls, some other folks have voiced like maybe there's some concern or we're starting to see issues. And so I just want to put that out there. Like, I know insurance can be a touchy subject, but we're trying to do what we can, and we're looking for those opportunities to expand our, I guess, role with insurance. In California, we're working with some different data providers, Verisk, BetterView. There's a couple others that I don't remember their name that have signed on board, that we are for a fee providing the Firewise boundary data, and then they have the ability to roll it into the different products that they offer insurance companies. So through like Verisk, it's part of their wildfire package, and it offers a yes/no determination to see if an address is within a Firewise site. So that's what's going on there. How the other companies are going to roll it out and use it, we don't really have control over that. But there is a desire from, I know, Verisk to expand beyond California, along with some of these other data providers. And our goal is eventually to be looking at all of the United States and providing that data. So just putting it out there. If there are some questions, we can chat about that. I just have a few more slides. We can have a conversation at the end. It's whatever works for the group. I'll just pop on to kind of what does all of that mean for Firewise USA. So it's not just the insurance piece or people getting dropped, because there is this attention from an industry that is, they're a for-profit business, but they are taking us into consideration. It really reinforces the need that Firewise USA is a program that has criteria. We have an application process, we have an annual renewal process, and we have those things that have to be met. So when we look at the program, again, we'll always welcome people back in. But if people aren't getting in the applications and they're not connecting with us and letting us know, they might move to inactive. And that's because we just need to have that accurate data set when we're working with the insurance industry. Really, again, that reinforcement of quality of risk assessments and action plans and update cycles and quality of work within those communities. It should be prioritized. It should be meaningful. How do we help communities really focus on the most important things? How do we get them the funding? And I know that was part of a conversation the other day. There are a lot of grants for looking at the landscape and what's on the ground, but how do we help communities access those monies that can help with the home retrofits and some of those improvements? And Michelle, through her work on the Wildfire Commission, they're giving that feedback. We have been a part of some of the FEMA listening sessions where we've given feedback and our perspectives on some of the grants and the ability to access. When I go to conferences, I try to attend different sessions. So at least if people are asking me questions, I can be knowledgeable to help them. I know it can be a difficult process to navigate. And so that's just a challenge out there, is how can we help them get this work done? Accuracy in community boundary maps. So we don't have it in the portal as a requirement, like that you have to give us a map. Some states have put that into their state requirements, and we appreciate that. And most of the time in a good CWPP, there is a map with a boundary. But I think that's one thing we're going to work towards in the portal, is making it clear, we need a map of the boundary. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be, because Aaron goes in and he works with a contractor that does a lot of the digitizing for us. We're always happy to take GIS files if you have them, but really we can digitize the maps, but we need them to be there. Otherwise, he goes online and he searches and he finds the communities. And then annual reporting benchmarks and metrics. This is something we've been trying to figure out how to build into the portal. Is how do we get that snapshot of what a community really looks like when they first join? And then through reporting, how can they show their progress? Is that a slider that they can, move around? Is it saying when you first start, how many of the 100 homes in your boundary are actually participating? Maybe it's 20%. And then the next year it's 30%. How do we capture some of those things? Because whether the insurance industry is paying attention or not, we need to see progress, right? These communities need to make progress so they can be safer when that next wildfire occurs. So that's a lot of a soapbox from Megan about Firewise. We're going to move on to a few other things to help you as you're doing all this work. So that idea of training and capacity building, those are some of the things we look at when it comes to wildfire preparedness and what we have to put out there. And we do have some new online resources to help. We have 2 new trainings. So this one is Reducing Wildfire Risk to People and Property Professional Online Training. It's modeled after the information in the in-person ASIP class. But it's a lot shorter, it's free and self-paced, and it's really kind of meant to be that kind of stopgap measure. It could be an introductory for new staff you're bringing on board who just need to get some basics before they can go to a more in-depth training. Or it could be a refresher for those of you who maybe wear many hats in your job, and now it's time to circle back to going out and visiting communities and doing those home assessments. So it's online. You can get to kind of the landing page with that URL there. It'll take you to our catalog where you'll have to purchase it, but it's free. It's just you have to log in through the system to gain access to our online learning platform. And then we have a similar version that's but different, and it's more for the homeowner and the business owner. And again, it's to help kind of build that base knowledge of the folks who are out there. They'll be able to learn about what are the different, threats and hazards and the steps that they can take. And then for anyone who takes this online training, they'll leave with their own kind of property protection plan. So they'll have that opportunity to fill in their concerns, their hazards, and those recommended actions that they can follow with. Another resource that came out last year, maybe it was the year before, the years are blending together. I think it was 2022, our Sites of Excellence report. So in 2019 and 2020, we did a pilot program with sites from across the country. We had one in Virginia and one in Texas, trying to look at how to increase participation in our already active sites. You can read kind of the findings online. There's a story map that kind of gives a little highlight from each of the communities, with some different strategies at the end around like, what are some barriers and how do you overcome them and what really leads to success. And it is a lot of the stuff we know, but I think it's good reinforcement for, oh yeah, those things are important, like that neighbor to neighbor communication. How do you build community cohesion? We found in some of the sites where maybe they were hesitant to work with their state partners, that when they were more present coming in and helping with this, it really built up that trust relationship. So then they were more willing to work with the state government and then to kind of be that ambassador for the state government. So really, really good stuff. And this is kind of one of my favorite quotes that came out of that report from a community member was, having a Firewise sign in front of your neighborhood doesn't mean you're done. It means that you admit you have a problem. And I think they mean like the broader people who are looking at the community don't understand. It means we are a neighborhood that is working to become Firewise. So I think that's really true. None of our participating sites are perfect. They're all somewhere on a journey, but they've committed to that journey. They have acknowledged we have a problem. There are things we need to do, and we're going to be a part of the solution. So I really love that because I think that's captures the spirit of it all. And then a big thing I would be remiss in not mentioning is Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. So this is our other campaign engagement program. It's been in place since 2014. Call to Action for Wildfire Risk Reduction Around Homes. It's co-sponsored by State Farm and NFPA, and it's the first Saturday in May, which is this Saturday. So now that I am back home in Spokane, or home in Washington, I'm excited. I'm going to go out to a community just north of Spokane on Saturday for a bit, take some pictures, help do some of the work, just visit for a bit. And I think it's going to be really exciting. So if you or the communities you work with are looking for something to do on Saturday, it's a great way to kind of kick off that preparedness. We have a video, but I think I'm out of time. So I'm just gonna be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. We've got time for a couple of questions. So does
Okay.
anyone have any questions for Megan? You can throw them in the chat, or you can just come on and provide information. We did have one comment again in the chat. Wesley and Brooke were discussing about community leader burnout. I know that's something we've faced here in Tennessee. Get somebody that's really excited and they want to step away, and the program tends to falter a little bit on that. So
yeah, and I saw his note in there about, you have to build a base, right? A core group. When it's just one person who does it all, as soon as they move or just say I'm done or pass on, the interest fades away. So how do you build that up? And I know I have a conversation coming up soon with Becca Samolsky and some others out of Colorado who have been really building that FAC ambassador program. And how can we bring that concept into Firewise more? I know it's used by different states and folks at the local level, or that idea of neighborhood ambassadors or block captains. Or how can you build on structures that are already there within your community? And it is a tough one. It's hard to be the voice in your community, always trying to get folks to do work. And how do you make it fun? And it's always, though, right, you think about it like, well, this is your home and where you live. Don't you want to do things? But there's so much competition for our time and attention. It's just difficult and it can be overwhelming. So that is an acknowledged challenge, and we'll just keep working on how do we support and keep folks going. I see Michael Downey.
Yeah, Megan, I have in the Southwest Virginia, I have a lot of homes that are smaller developments that may not meet like the 8 criteria, or have, are growing but want to start want to be involved with Firewise, but some of the lots are still for sale, and just with COVID and everything, and market prices. So they want to start with being part of Firewise, but they don't make that, the 8 dwellings, and or on the other flip side, don't have the funding through the community to be an organized community to be part of the program. So are there any thoughts on how to go around that?
For the minimum of 8, it can be a conversation between us. If we have some communities that are smaller, we leave it usually to the discretion of the state liaison. We like to have that conversation, but we don't want to snuff out interest, right? If people are willing to do the work and they want to be engaged, we can talk about it. And we can see if you think it'll go, we can have that discussion, because there's things I can do on the back end in the portal. When it comes to the empty lot sizes, or maybe the organization and the money, I mean, that part's tough. We have a lot of communities that participate that aren't an HOA or a POA. If they're just neighbors working together. But someone has to say, okay, I'm going to be in charge, and I've got the computer and the internet, and I can do the things. But I think that's where, and I need to circle back to another state liaison call, is this opportunity for the liaisons and those local representatives to connect with each other and share, because I can imagine there's a wealth of knowledge on here from folks who might have ideas on how you can support some of those communities. But conversation is where it all starts. So we can set up a chat. We can see if some folks want to get in on a chat and see if we can strategize for you.
Great, thank you.
Caroline, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so a good deal of our communities here have HOAs, and I didn't know if you could kind of you touched on it briefly, but are HOAs typically, are they going to be more of your ally or obstacle when it's coming to making a Firewise community?
Both. It really depends. I think the program and the structure, while I just said you don't have to be an HOA, does lend itself nicely to an HOA, because they have committees already. Some of them have funds, or they collect fees or assessments, so that can help if they're already doing the landscaping work. They have ways to communicate with all the members who live within their boundary, within their communities. So an HOA can be an ally. But then on the flip side, we have some where it becomes a power issue, and it turns the community real sour, like the members sour on the program, because that committee that holds the power at the HOA level will become very stick approach, very authoritative with you shall do these things. And we don't give them that authority. It's, whatever's written into their CC&Rs and their bylaws is what guides them. So then we get some of that friction within that community. So it comes down to people. And then we have some where I get phone calls of you guys are corrupt and ruining our community. And I'm like, we're not doing anything. This is a people issue, and you need to solve it at the local level. I mean, we see the spectrum of how people feel about it and how people feel about participating. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to partner with HOAs, but it just comes down to people, and they are the unknown dynamic.
So when going into a community, not only are you assessing the homes, but you're kind of assessing that social dynamic too, to see who you're gonna really touch base with to spearhead the project.
I would say so. Yeah. And that's where sometimes all of the recommendations are the right thing the community needs, but they don't need the program itself. It's not the right tool for everyone. And so that might be one of those things, if you're going into an HOA, maybe that human dynamic isn't the right fit for a program, but just sharing the information about what people can do is enough for them to do for themselves. Yeah, Wes has a good point in there. You know, the architectural committee, Firewise, environmental protection, that is ideal. When those groups are working together and they have that common goal and that vision, it's just not always the case. So you just, yeah, approach them cautiously, but be positive. And again, more folks on here who are engaged in this every day on the ground can also share their perspectives and their tips. Um, but I think you can make a lot of progress with an HOA. It's just being mindful. Sorry, it's both sides.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Megan, for joining us
Yeah.
this morning. Appreciate having you on here. And again, I will leave the chat open if people have other questions or comments. I will make Megan's presentation available on our Prevention Exchange website. So if you want to be able to take a look at that a little bit later on. And we're right now at break time. So let's come back at 10:50 a.m. Central Time, and we'll continue on. So Megan, you're welcome to stay with us, and we have some folks coming on from the U.S. Fire Administration next. So
Sure.
we'll continue on. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.